It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
Welcome to Dialogues with Dan, heard on Rockland World Radio, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday evening. Be sure to check out the archives on the program page located off the menu bar. Now the host of Dialogues with Dan, Mr. Dan Windheim.
Thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. You know, like I like to say, we have a live one tonight. Actually, I mean that on a few accounts. You'll see why. I'd like to introduce my live guest. Lenny Nathan will be speaking about CPR training and the importance. Welcome, Lenny.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yes. Glad you can make it. So, Lenny, maybe we could start by you telling us about your background and how you got involved with CPR training.
Sure.
And all the above.
Well, it's kind of interesting. My background has nothing to do with CPR. I spent 30 years in the television industry, the last 25 of which I was an executive with ABC Sports. I retired 10 years ago, and I just picked up my golf clubs and started playing golf every day and getting involved with the different volunteer efforts around Rockland County. That got me involved with my local ambulance corps. That led me to become an EMT because I fell in love with it, the idea of helping people. And that led me to become a trainer at the ambulance corps, which then led me 7 years ago to start HealthSav, which has become an American Heart Association training center, and we do training at all levels of CPR and first aid.
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah, Lenny, maybe you could tell everyone what are the different areas that CPR involves?
Well, people don't really have a true understanding of CPR. That's what I've learned. You have the average person on the street who says, I don't want to learn that. I don't want to put my mouth on someone. Well, you really no one should put their mouth on a stranger. But how to do it effectively and what to do to save someone's life is something we want everybody to know. The most important part of CPR is pushing on the chest, and you have to do that extremely hard. I know we're going to do a little demo later, yes. But you have to push down on an adult's chest at least 2 inches. And people often say, oh, what if I hurt them? You can't. You have to understand that if a person needs CPR, they are clinically dead. CPR stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cardio is your circulatory system. Pulmonary is your breathing system. And if you think about it, resuscitation means bringing them back. They are dead. That's what we're trying to do for someone, resuscitate them. And unless it's done aggressively, they can't survive. And the survival rate is very low in the United States. 7% of people who go into cardiac arrest survive. That's 350,000 of about 400,000 die, mostly because no one started CPR. They just wait for someone else to get there. And people don't know what cardiac arrest is often, and this is a big problem. Heart attacks, for instance, have nothing to do with CPR. As dangerous as heart attacks are medically, they're not often fatal. And this is something we go into in depth so people understand it in our courses. But in the brief time we have today, cardiac arrest is an electrical problem with the heart. Our heart is pumping, and it runs on an electrical pulse. When something disturbs that electrical pulse, the heart just starts to spasm. It goes into this quiver, which we call ventricular fibrillation. The person who goes into that rhythm is irreversibly brain dead in approximately 4 minutes. And this is why waiting is no good, because when we do CPR, the primary goal is pumping blood. And pumping blood when the heart is not pumping is keeping the organs fed and keeping them going and buying time. But that time is just a few more minutes because we need to see that an AED, a defibrillator, gets there in time. So, whether the police have it or the ambulance, they can't get there in time to start CPR, but they might get it there in time if CPR was being performed to defibrillate the person. But then, of course, we want to see more defibrillators in public places because this is a situation where time plays a critical role.
Yes.
There is no time.
So if you can prolong or keep them level until the professionals get there.
That's the key, is by that time until, and whether it's the professionals or, you're in a store or in a mall or in a theater and there's an AED nearby, you send someone to get it. If they get there, use it. And I've trained 6-year-olds in how to use an AED. It is truly a simple device, and people are always amazed when they see it and say, that's all there is to it? It's very simple to use. You just have to turn it on, and if you've never seen one before, it tells you what to do.
Yes. Yeah, you had just said before the show that people are maybe hesitant because they don't want to be responsible,
right,
or held accountable. Could you repeat what you said?
Well, it's really fascinating because we know that in the statistics of why people don't want to stop and help someone, the number one reason is fear of liability. There is zero liability, and I mean zero. The Good Samaritan law exists in all 50 states and is designed to protect you from liability. That doesn't mean somebody might not try to sue, but if they even get to court, which today doesn't happen often, you're allowed to sue for damages. And here's how it works. The Good Samaritan law says you are a Good Samaritan if you help someone in good faith, and they define in good faith as you're doing it by choice and you're not accepting any pay or reward. A training organization called the American Safety and Health Institute states there has never been a successful lawsuit in the United States against anyone who has performed any first aid in good faith. So there's zero liability. The second biggest reason people give for not helping is fear of catching a disease, and we train people not to do anything that's going to be unsafe to them. And not getting into depth in that, but we cover all those issues in the classes. And the third biggest reason statistically that people give for not helping someone, they're scared they might do something wrong and hurt the person. But this person's clinically dead. You can't make it worse. That's what we need to get people to understand about CPR. It's resuscitation. An injury is better than death. We can fix injuries later.
Sure. And before we start on the demo, maybe you could tell us where HealthSav is, what is it, and is it national?
Well, we're not national. Training facilities are generally regionally based. We're starting our 5th year in New City. We had our first 3 years were elsewhere, but we're in the same location now at 7 Elmwood Drive in New City, New York. We offer classes 7 days a week. First aid, CPR, and there are different levels that meet different needs. So that's something that we help people get themselves geared towards. And sometimes professionally, you have to take certain courses. But we do that 7 days a week at our facility. We go on location for clients, businesses all over the tri-state area. And we're going to be doing 7 classes for the New York Blood Center between their Long Island City facility and their Elmsford facility in Westchester later this month. We're all over the tri-state area, and as a training center, we have instructors based all over that are their own entities, but they do report back to HealthSav as we are the training center for them.
Yes. You had said about different courses. So besides, I know you might not want to get into all the different factions of CPR or HealthSav. There are different methods, different ways of saving people.
CPR is CPR, but there are different criteria based on different professions, and the American Heart Association gears the courses, designs them based on the audience that it's intended to reach. So you have non-certification courses, you have certification courses. The certification courses, there's one for the professional healthcare provider. There's one for more of a lay person, such as a massage therapist, a personal trainer. These are professions that are required to take CPR, but not yet required, they don't have to do the professional healthcare provider level. So these are things that sometimes people come to us, they're not sure what they have to do, and by their profession or reason for taking CPR, we can help them, and tailor what they need by what the American Heart Association has created. The problem is most people take CPR only when they do need to take it. We're trying to get people to understand why everyone should learn a very basic form of CPR. And in 2010, the American Heart Association created something called hands-only CPR. And after the demonstration we're going to do today, you're going to be able to teach it to someone legally.
Yes.
Hands-only CPR, all we need to do is tell you what it is. So today we're going to tell you, but I brought a friend of mine with you so we can show it also.
Oh, great. And before the demo, maybe you could give your internet address.
Sure.
The website,
Always have to do promotion.
the website, and maybe a phone number.
Right. HealthSav, our website is www, of course, health.healthsave.com. Now, the thing about HealthSav, remember that our spelling has no E on save. We leave that E off for emergencies. So it's HealthSav.com. Our phone number, 914-643-3663. And when one wants to register for our courses, it's very simply done right off of our website. You select the day and time for the course you want, click on it, registration form opens, and you're all set. You just have to come in the day you registered for and complete the course. It's as simple as that. And we want to get this out to as many people as possible.
Excellent. And maybe you could tell us how many people have gone through your programs?
Well, I personally train about 1,500 people a year. HealthSav, with all of our additional instructors throughout the tri-state area, we probably are doing, over 3,000 people a year in total in terms of issuing certification cards to that number.
Oh, excellent. So let's bring your friend in.
Yeah, sure. He's nearby.
Yes.
So this is my little friend, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stand up to give you an idea of how this works. So you always want to get a person on a firm, flat surface. Mattress, sofa is no good. So here we have this person on a hard surface. We need to have them on their back. We want to remove clothes from the chest. But let me go back to the basic steps of CPR. Before I'd even approach this person, the first thing I want to do is make sure it's safe for me. There's no electrical wire, nothing that could endanger me. If it's safe, I'm going to tap the chest shoulder area, and I'm going to stare at their face while I'm shouting at them, "Come on, wake up. Are you okay?" If I don't see any movement in that face, the next thing I'm going to do is, "Richard, call 911 right away. Dan, see if you can find an AED in the building and get it here as fast as possible." Then I'm going to check quickly for breathing. I'm just going to look for movement in the chest area for about 5 seconds. If I don't see any of that movement, I'm going to remove everything from the front of the chest. We want to bare the chest to see where our hand goes. I'm going to take the heel of my hand and I'm going to place it what we call the lower half of the breastbone. We have the nipple line here, and I'm going to put my hand directly in that line. I don't want to press here at the bottom of the breastbone. I'm going to place my second hand on top. Whether you interlock your fingers or do this, that's up to the individual. You want to try to keep your shoulders over your hands and your elbows straight. And you use your body weight to drive down through the chest, not just pushing on it. This is hard work. And you do this over 2 inches is what we're pushing at a speed of over 100 per minute, but not too much over 100 per minute. And there's a little trick towards that. So this is what we're doing here. And my little friend here has lights on the shoulder, which you may not see, but when we train people, those lights are going to help someone see if they're doing this properly. And right now I have 2 green lights. That means I'm pushing hard enough and fast enough. If I went too slow, there's 1 green light, and that tells my student, go faster. If I'm not pushing hard enough, that clicking that I hear now, I won't hear it, but the mannequin will show me a red light. That means push harder. And our speed of 100 per minute, what we want you to think of is an old song from the 70s.
Don't say old.
The Bee Gees. Well, I'm getting there. But the Bee Gees had a great hit called Staying Alive. That's what we want to do for these people. So, staying alive, staying alive. Don't turn the radios off. I don't want you to run away now. But that's, if you keep that beat going, you're doing this properly. And just push hard and fast. Hard, at least 2 inches. Fast, at least 100 per minute. And we don't even need you to do breathing at this point. Conventional CPR, we still teach breathing. But for the layperson, make sure it's safe. Check to see if they're responsive. If they're not responsive, tell someone to call 911. Call yourself if no one's there, and just start doing what you see me doing right now, pushing on the chest. This is keeping the blood flow going through this person, keeping the organs alive until that defibrillator gets there. And this is what people fail to do, and why this person would only have 4 minutes to survive without these chest compressions. So this is what the main impetus of CPR is, keeping the blood flow going while this is happening. Without it, they die. And with it, we can save lives.
What'd you say? Oh, thank you, Lenny.
He's okay.
You said thank you, Lenny.
All right, dude. One more time, we did it.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
So, Lenny, I'm wondering, have CPR methods changed over time?
Well, they not only change, but people always say, it's always changing. Every 5 years, an international organization called ILCOR, led by the American Heart Association and comprising heart associations all over the world, does evaluations on a daily basis, but every 5 years they make recommendations for changes based on the studies. And we've seen in the past 10, 15 years some radical changes, but a lot of that's due to the computers and the increase in how we can evaluate data so that we learn more and we can more effectively perform the procedures. So yes, changes do occur. They're announced every 5 years. So now we're in the 2010 guidelines, and in 2015 we'll see if the science is telling us to do something different.
Yes. Is there anything on the internet as far as showing people what to do?
Well, obviously organizations like the American Heart Association charge fees for their programs and their courses. So what we have on the internet from the American Heart Association, many people can now take a CPR course by doing part 1 online in a brilliant interactive program where you actually have scenarios and you have to move people around and do this in a timely manner. And then you come into an instructor-led classroom session for practice and testing on a mannequin to show that you also have the skills, but you do the cognitive learning on your own. So, to get certified, many people are misled thinking they can do it online, but online certifications are bogus. So what the American Heart Association has is what's called blended learning. blended learning. You do part one online, and then you come in with an instructor-led, yet a shorter class than the full class, and you do the practice and the skill session with the instructor.
Yeah, Len. Yeah, you saw, actually, before we started the program, I attempted to try the CPR on the mannequin, and I really didn't do a very good job.
But that would take more practice.
Yes.
If you were in a class, we would work at it, and we can even come up with ways to get it more effective. But the other thing you were trying, Dan, was you're doing it on the table.
Yes.
The height here can make it awkward. We usually will have the person obviously on the floor. You kneel next to them, and now you've got the leverage to lean over the top and let all your weight drive down through that chest so that you can pump that hard and keep that speed going that fast.
Yeah, I was telling you that my show started about disabilities and for the disabled. Is there a method where the disabled can maybe do this? Someone in a wheelchair or someone who's disabled?
There are limitations, of course. Someone in a wheelchair, if they're unable to get on the ground next to the person and have full muscle control to do the compressions, will not be able to. But yet I have taught blind people. Here in Rockland, we have a summer camp for blind people in Pomona, and I had done their training for several years, and it was fascinating how I developed techniques to get them to recognize the spots on the body and find them quickly. And their memories were much more developed than mine would be, so they would be able to recall and do these things better than the sighted people. A deaf person, of course they can do it, and they've got their senses developed to be able to see more what's going on around them than I might. But they may not hear someone yelling. But could a handicapped person do this? Of course. Are there limitations? Of course. You have to have the physical ability to push hard and fast and get in the position needed for the victim in order to accomplish it.
Yes, that makes sense. But let me ask you, would you say that something is better than nothing?
Absolutely. You know, when people are afraid to do this because they're not sure, they're scared they might hurt the person. Remember, you can't hurt them. They're dead. All you can do is help. This is the mental approach one has to have. Something is clearly better than nothing. If you don't start this when they're, and all you need to know is if they're unconscious and not breathing. That's the only criteria for CPR. You don't have to worry that you're not sure how to check a pulse. It has nothing to do with it. A person who is unconscious and not breathing is clinically dead. Biological death, brain death, we can't determine. That's done medically, but they are minimally clinically dead. You cannot make it worse.
Right. So a pulses, that's a different maybe section of CPR?
Well, it's not even important anymore in the professional CPR, which is the only area of CPR where we still even use the word pulse, but it has to do with a technique that really has nothing to do with CPR. So I don't want to confuse people listening who are not medical people, but it's really, even in the professional level CPR, it's insignificant to the process of CPR, completely insignificant.
It is. So when you always see medical staff grabbing a person's neck to feel a pulse.
Well, pulses are important medically, don't take me wrong. But when the process is to first determine if they're conscious or not. If they're unconscious, we then determine if they're breathing. If they're both unconscious and not breathing, it doesn't matter if they have a pulse or not. Because if they do, they won't within seconds unless we can get them breathing. And that's what you have to realize. But in the movies, don't think what you see in movies or TV is CPR, because they're basically doing this, and not what you saw me do, that heavy physical work. what you see is not real by any stretch of the imagination. And much of that is because they're doing it on an actor, and you can't do this on a person. You don't want to do this on a live person. In case an injury were to occur, it would then be an accident. But if that person is unconscious and not breathing, the American Heart Association tells you, pushing too hard is better than not hard enough. An injury is better than death. We can always fix that injury. We can't fix death.
Yeah, so say that again in a statement about the pressure and force.
Well, push hard, push fast, at least 2 inches in the center of the chest. Let the chest come back after each push. Do it at that speed of staying alive.
Yeah.
And, if you don't like that song, we were talking about this before, there is another song out there that's the same speed, 103 beats per minute. We tend to stay away from it because it just isn't as appropriate, but another one bites the dust. If you like it, use it, but staying alive is a little more appropriate.
Exactly. And maybe right now we can talk a little about the tools in CPR.
The tools. Now, when you talk about tools, what are you referring to?
Well,
these are my tools.
Yeah.
These are my tools for CPR.
Yes.
Now, additionally, as a professional, I carry here, I have in this little red pouch, I carry 3 different masks. Not 1, but 3. This comes with it, and then I added a couple. I'm sorry that they're closed and I can't, I'll open one and show it to you. But you gotta be careful not to do what I just did. But I just opened up this little piece, and here is what we call a face shield. All of these are face shields. This is a one-way valve. Nothing will come back at me, but it will allow my air to go into the victim. And as I lay this over the mouth, when an effect is mouth to mouth with this barrier, I'm going to pinch the nose to block the air from coming out. Put 2 fingers here. I'm going to press on the forehead and lift the chin. And then I'm going to cover the mouth, and I'm going to watch the chest as I blow. And our function here is to watch the chest rise to make sure that we got the air in. The mannequin's not set up for that now. I hadn't prepared that in advance. But this is a simple device that came in this package that can easily be carried by anyone. A similar device to this, just a little bit smaller, is rolled up in this little package. And then this just has a different type of valve on it. But also, these are all devices that are easy to carry around. I also carry one in this little fake oxygen tank. That's what this is supposed to represent. If I just unscrew this, there's my little face shield. Yes. So I'm carrying with me 4 of these at all times. So if someone's around, I can give them one, and we can both have our own protection. People just generally are not aware of the existence of these simple and inexpensive devices. This is $3.
Yes.
All right, and they're not sold in drugstores yet because they're not mainstream. I hope one day they will be.
Yeah.
We carry them.
How could people get a hold of these?
Well, we have them at our facility, because we hope students purchase them before they leave. It's not a requirement for them, but we want them to know that this is what will let them do the whole process safely. Other than that, you really have to go on the internet to order it and pay your shipping and tax charges. So that $3 device is probably going to cost you, $5, $6 by the time you get through with shipping and tax and all that. But we buy them in bulk. We have them in our facility. But the bottom line is we want people to know about them. We want people to consider carrying them with them.
Exactly.
But when you don't have it, remember, don't do something that's not safe to you. Putting your mouth on a stranger is not safe. No one should do it.
Yeah, good point. More boyfriends and girlfriends should be aware of that. putting
I
them
always
out.
say if they're cute, but no, if it's a stranger, we don't know. I teach infection control, and the first rule we teach, a very simple one anyone can understand, it's called universal precautions. And the definition of that term states, treat all blood and all body fluid as if it's infected unless you know otherwise.
Yeah.
That's our motto.
That's a great point. Yeah, and my last question is about the future for CPR. Are there new things in the making?
Well, what we are trying to do in all 50 states, we meaning the American Heart Association, and we have gotten 12 states passing this legislation. We are still working on the New York bill, and in January when they come back to session, that's the number one goal in 2014 for the American Heart Association. It's to make what I just showed you, CPR, hands-only CPR, mandatory before you graduate high school. This is, again, something we hope to accomplish in all 50 states. You can help by going to a website called CPRsmart.org. It's an American Heart Association website. There's a letter. If you click send the letter, it'll automatically go to the governor and your politicians by your zip code, and you could send that website, CPRsmart.org, to people you know, asking them to do it, and send it to people they know. We're trying to network this out and get more people to know the value of this. In the United States, only 7% of the people who suffer cardiac arrest survive. Almost 1,000 a day die from cardiac arrest. 9,000 a year of those are under 18. This is not an age-related condition like people associate heart attacks. Different thing. But cardiac arrest is deadly. It's called sudden death. But in Seattle, Washington, they have a survival rate of 55% as against the United States of 7%. And that's because it's been mandatory in schools for people to learn this for the past 32 years. Wow. And it's about education. Getting people to see what I showed you that quickly is going to save lives.
Yes. And one more thing. You know, Len, my shows are seen everywhere
by
in the
millions.
World. Yeah, I'd
Hopefully.
like to think so. But is there, like, say someone in Canada want to get connected with CPR instruction? Is there a website?
Well, you know, anybody who wants to, in North America, who wants to learn CPR can go to the American Heart Association website, and they have something called the Course Finder. And by your zip code, you can locate classes within whatever radius you designate on their search to find a CPR course that would be near you. So, you know, the American Heart Association definitely wants to make it easier for people to find courses, to get this information out there, whether you're required to or not, get people to learn CPR. So the AHA website, I don't have it precisely, and I don't know it, but of course you can easily Google AHA, and once you get to that website, it's easy to navigate and find the Course Finder, which will, by zip code, allow you to find classes near you.
Excellent. Well, Lenny Nathan, this has been great information. I want to thank you.
Thank you
for
having
joining
me. Come by.
This has been Lenny Nathan with his
buddy.
Buddy.
That's my buddy.
No name. Buddy.
And remember, if you're in the Rockland, New Jersey, Westchester, Orange County area, HealthSav.com, 914-643-3663.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, and have a great night, everyone. Peace.
You see how simple?
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com